Welcome back to the ELLEBY HOWARD EASTER YouTube channel. I'm Joel and this is Jared. And today we wanted to talk about a type of case that doesn't come up a whole lot, looking at what's going on in California with the wildfires and all of the horrendous damage that's happening to people as well as their property out there and businesses. It's just terrible. And after thinking about what's going on, it got us to thinking about smaller scale tragedies that may be on the individual level, where somebody's home burns down or their business burns down or they're injured by fire. Certainly not something that is as common as like car wrecks or falls or anything like that, but it can happen, and when it does happen, the damages are usually pretty catastrophic and life altering. So we wanted to go through some things that we see related to fires and property damage and personal injury lawsuits, as well as ways that you can go about addressing and remedying the damage that happens after a fire, like at least in the state of Georgia, what you can do about that. So you want to kick us off, Jared?
Yeah, so anytime you encounter a fire and looking for a way to get a legal recovery, you have to think about whose home it is and who was the ultimate owner of the property that burned down. Usually it's either a landlord situation or where you're an actual homeowner. And I think the one that gets passed up sometimes is what happens if the house burns down that you own. A lot of people think, well, I have homeowners insurance that would come in and pay some compensation for the value of the house, and that's pretty much it. But there's also some instances that are worth investigating where, what was the cause of the fire? Sometimes there can be an item or a product in your house that was defective that ultimately started the fire. Sometimes it's the electrical wires in the wall or space heater. There's a lot of different items that could potentially have a defect that you don't know about until it's too late, and it sparks and causes the fire. And in those situations, in addition to just your homeowner's insurance, you could explore options as to whether you could prove that the product was defective. Did the manufacturer know about it, or did the electrician who wired your house do something wrong? And in those situations, it might open up some liability on those fronts to be able to pursue for personal injury damages as well as property damage.
Yeah, and you can rest assured that your insurance company, if you make a claim, if your house burns down, for example, is probably going to be looking into those things, because if they pay to rebuild your house or fix the damage that it causes, and then they determine that, it was the electrician that improperly wired the house and that's what caused the fire, in all likelihood, they're going to pursue the electrician to try to get their money back for whatever they end up paying you, whether it's property damage or bodily injury damages. But fires can happen in so many situations, and like what Jared was talking about, whether it's your home, whether you're renting a home, any of those things plays a large role in how you would go about seeking a recovery, how you would go about trying to get the damages fixed, and who would be paying for it. Going back to the California wildfires, a friend of mine from where I grew up posted something on social media, and it was something like, "I can't believe people are suing already. Your insurance company's going to take care of it." And I bit my tongue. I didn't say anything, but I wanted to be like, seriously? Like, you're trusting the insurance company to just pay for all of this? Yeah, that's a tough road to hoe, and probably misplaced trust. So what I want to do is talk to homeowners first, and if you're a homeowner and your house has not burned down, it's probably a good idea to at least look at your homeowner's insurance contract and see what it covers, because you may think it covers fire, and it probably does, but I guarantee you there's an exclusion portion there, and it's going to list out a lot of different exclusions that if one of those exclusions is the cause of the fire, you may not have any coverage. So do that first before the worst happens, so that you know that you're covered for, you'll know what you're covered for and what you're not covered for. But also, I want to talk about renters, because a lot of times in the personal injury sense, this is what we run into. It's where somebody's renting a home, they're renting an apartment, and something happens that the landlord didn't address that causes a fire and hurts somebody really bad. When you have those situations, you're not necessarily looking, I mean, I guess maybe if you have renter's insurance, you could look at it for your property damage or whatever. But if you're hurt really bad from a boiler that explodes or whatever, then you're probably going to be suing your landlord or the property owner or management company for the damages that you sustain.
Yeah, and there's a lot that goes into, where those management companies could go wrong. I think we've seen cases over the years of not having adequate fire protection or notification, smoke alarms, sprinklers, doing unpermitted additions to homes that make it next to impossible to get out if there's a fire, or renting out rooms where there are occupancy issues, uncertified contractors coming in and doing gas repairs or fixing a gas dryer. The list goes on, and it's things that as the tenant, you're unaware of. You rent a place, you're paying your rent, it's super expensive throughout Georgia these days, and you assume, if I'm paying all this money, I have a good place to live. But that is why the claim and the negligence, the ability to bring those claims exists, is because we rely as tenants on the landlord to do the right thing, keep it in good repair, and the next thing you know, the landlord's got his brother fixing the gas dryer and there's a gas explosion. So it's important, though, in those cases, if you are unfortunately a victim, that you get someone involved that can kind of dig into those things and look into it and try to see, what did go wrong.
Yep, and that was the next step I was going to get to, is how do you prove exactly what it was? Because most of us that aren't fire marshals, that aren't arson investigators, that don't have experience in forensic fire investigation, wouldn't know where to start. I mean, we might know something basic like, well, the color of the ground is going to be different at the hottest spot of the fire where it probably started and things like that, but not enough knowledge to carry any legal weight when a claim is brought. So I think when the damages are severe, and if you run into any pushback from insurance companies about treating you fairly, or your landlord or whoever, then it's a good idea to get in touch with a lawyer that has handled fire injury and fire damage claims before, because not only will you need the lawyer's legal expertise, that lawyer is likely to be familiar with experts in forensic fire examination, and by forensic we just mean legal, that would know how to go in, do an inspection, find out what caused the fire, and that way you know what the cause was and who could potentially be responsible for it, who had a duty to prevent this from happening. In the commercial building complex, and that would include apartments, stores, anything like that, there are a lot of codes in place that these commercial facilities have to follow. And the reason those codes are in place is to prevent fires, or at least minimize the risk of a fire. So you have to have things that would guard against a fire occurring in the first place, and then if a fire does occur, then you need to have fire alarms and sprinkler systems and things like that to put it out quickly. And if any of those codes are violated or missed, then you would have a stronger case to recover the damages you sustain if a fire happens in a commercial facility. So
yeah, and along the same lines, that can become really important in situations of arson, where a fire is intentionally set. Technically, you would have a claim against the person who set the fire. It would be an intentional tort for setting the building on fire. However, likely that person is not going to have means or ability to compensate you for whatever, damage was caused. And a lot of times an insurance company or a landlord might try to take the position of, well, this wasn't my fault, it was that guy that burned the place down. But sometimes having an attorney and some experts involved, you can point out and kind of build the case that a fire in a large commercial building should be foreseeable. They do happen, and the code establishes what a landowner should do in order to minimize the damage caused if a fire does break out. So if you're on your own and you're trying to make this claim, the insurance company property owner says, no, it's arson, there's nothing we can do, when in fact, yes, arson started the fire, but there was a lot of corners cut as far as fire prevention that could have saved lives or property along the way. and you just need some experts to articulate those theories in order to get you the recovery that you're entitled to.
Yep. And speaking of arson, that's probably the number one defense that insurance companies have to not pay claims, is if they suspect arson. That's always going to be an exclusion that we talked about earlier. If they suspect arson, they may deny the claim and say, well, we've got evidence that you burned your own house down to try to collect the insurance money. And if you did that, yeah, shame on you. You shouldn't get any money. But it doesn't necessarily mean, if it wasn't you intentionally burning your house down, and then the insurance company tries to say that it was, well, then you're definitely going to need a lawyer to fight that, and you're going to probably need experts, not only in the legal field, which would be your lawyer, but you're going to need arson forensic examiner experts. You're going to need probably insurance coverage experts. All of these type things come into it, and it's probably going to be unfortunately, a long drawn-out battle over getting proper compensation for that. I think all in all, there are a million different ways that fires can get started. There are a million different types of things that fires can damage, but it's all usually going to come down to how did the fire start, what safeguards were put in place to prevent that fire from spreading. Like, let's just say you're having a campfire in your backyard, did you do it when the humidity was at a 5%? And did you know that? Did you throw a bunch of leaves and stuff on there that were going to fly up in the air and then float over into your neighbor's yard and burn their house down? All those type things would come into the analysis of, are you responsible for the damage to somebody else? But how did it start? What safeguards were in place? Was it on a private property? Was it your own house? Was it at a commercial facility where more codes are involved? Was it a product? Was it electrical wiring? Was it a contractor that's responsible for it? Was your kid playing with matches and, it just happened, right? And then what are the damages and what are covered under whichever applicable insurance contract may be available, whether it's your homeowner's contract or an apartment or commercial facilities insurance contract. Does it cover the damage that you sustained? So all of these different things come into it. But I think it is also important to understand that if you have a claim, or if you have sustained a fire, and let's just say lightning hits your house and burns your house down, that sucks. But you're not suing God, right? Like, you're just going to have to make sure that your insurance policy covers that kind of stuff, and hopefully, you're out safely with your family. But if your house burns down from something like that, then you would look to your own homeowner's insurance policy to get it covered. So things like that do happen, and if there's not a person or an entity that's responsible for it, you need to make sure that whatever homeowner's insurance policy you purchased would cover something like that. So anything else over fires?
I think we've covered it.
Okay. All right. Well, again, our hearts go out to all of our neighbors and friends in California who are just going through the worst thing imaginable right now. But we hope this video has been helpful to you. If it has, give us a thumbs up. Hit that share button, and we will also put some resources in the description below this video that may be helpful if you are experiencing a fire claim, so you can do some research on your own instead of just listening to us. And then, of course, we're always available for consultations free of charge if you need to talk to us. You can just do that by calling 833-LEGAL-GA. But we appreciate you spending time with us today, and we will see you next week.
Yeah.
As personal injury lawyers, we love what we do, and we're happy to share the experience we've gained in personal injury law. To help our family, friends, and YouTube subscribers, we've shared over 300 personal injury videos covering various injury topics. So if you'd like to gain more knowledge that may help protect yourself or a loved one when they're on the roads or out in public, check out our channel or view our playlist of shorts for quick personal injury tips.